Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here to talk to you about this guy. His name is Knudage Riisager. Now, how do I know that? Well, let's put it this way. He was Danish, and Danish pronunciation is governed by a set of principles known as the Copenhagen interpretation. The Copenhagen interpretation holds that in the Danish alphabet, which only has 6 letters, any of those 6 can be pronounced like any of the ones that you're not pronouncing. So if you pick a letter, one of the 6, you can pronounce it like any of the other 5. And the entire alphabet of 6 letters can also be pronounced like any other letter in any other alphabet known to humankind. And the process that governs this is completely probabilistic. It's entirely random. There's no way to know at any given time whether one letter will be pronounced like any other letter, or if you should go outside the Danish alphabet completely and pick something from medieval Sanskrit. It's totally, completely randomized. That means that Knudage Riisager, at this point, you can see how they spell this. He has an A with like a little circly thing over it, and this little E isn't pronounced, and the G is pronounced like a Y, and this second I is like totally unnecessary. I mean, there's no way to know how you're going to say these things, and I happen to know, because I've been to Copenhagen several times, that the Copenhagen interpretation is not, as some people would think, the name given to the basic rules of quantum mechanics by Niels Bohr and Werner Heisenberg, he of the uncertainty principle. No, not a bit. They chose the name Copenhagen interpretation from the guidebook to Danish pronunciation most popular for tourists visiting Denmark, and it's on sale in every street kiosk in Copenhagen. It's just one of thousands of guides to Danish pronunciation, all of which are different. So I'm not terribly worried in calling him Knudage Riisager, because I know that if I've got it wrong today, it'll be right some other time in the future. Now, the reason Riisager is not as popular as he deserves to be, and let's see, his years were 1897 to 1974, is because nobody can pronounce his name. It's not like the totally non-probabilistic Carl Nielsen. Isn't that simple? Isn't that delightful? But when Mr. and Mrs. Riisager decided to call him Knudage, they made his life terribly difficult. And it's a shame, because Riisager is a fabulous, fabulous composer. Absolutely first-class talent. He really was. He was a symphonist, a ballet composer. He wrote fantastic ballets. And a lot of his music has been recorded. Here it is. Here's a stack of it. 9 CDs. There's another one that's over there. 10 CDs on the dacapo label primarily. And we're going to go through all of these because he was terrific. His orientation was not German. It was French, which is even better. He wanted his music to be scintillating and fizzy and motoric and neoclassical and neat and perky, and it's just great. I've got a whole bunch of examples of it to play you, and we're going to go through these discs because I want you to know just how varied and interesting it really is. It's just marvelous. He was a student of Roussel. He could have been a member of Les Six, that whole Paris group of composers of the 20s and 30s, Poulenc and Honegger and Auric and that crew. They're just great. They're just great, and he is marvelous. And fortunately, he's been recorded. He's one of those very, very well kept secrets hiding in the catalogs of enterprising smaller record labels. And dacapo, which is actually not a small label because they've been around for a while and have recorded tons and tons of Danish music superbly well, they made a point of doing a whole series of recordings dedicated to Riisager, and we need to hear them. You need to hear them. They are absolutely marvelous. He wrote 5 symphonies, but as a symphonist, he was of the French school. His symphonies tend to be short, perky, uplifting, not extremely heavy duty, you know what I mean? Not like Bruckner, you know what I mean? Anyway, let's talk about what's on these discs, because there is, first of all, a 3-disc symphony edition, which contains symphonies and other orchestral works. And disc number 1 in the symphony edition contains 3 overtures, which are absolutely wonderful. They are known as Danish Pictures 1, 2, and 3. His Opus 1, Erasmus something or other, what's this called? Erasmus Montanus. And then Jack the Dullard. That's a lot like, if you know Malcolm Arnold's Beckus the Dandy Prat. It's sort of the Danish version of that. In fact, you could compare him very, very well to Malcolm Arnold, only, as I point out in my original reviews on Classics Today, which you can check out if you want, he's kind of like Malcolm Arnold with the tunes and the color and the perkiness, but none of the bitterness and sort of immolative qualities that Malcolm Arnold later developed. And so then we get Symphony number 1, and this lovely, lovely piece called Comedy. Oh, that's the Danish, that's another overture. And finally, Carnival. That's the other Danish overture, Danish Picture number 3. So that's Symphonies Volume 1. Volume 2 gives us Symphonies numbers 2 and Symphony number 3, which was simply called Sinfonia. And I'm going to play you a bit of the last movement of that, just so you can get a sense of it. It's like no other symphonic production in the world. The whole piece is only 21 minutes long, and it has 3 movements, all of them quick, but which gives you something of his character, of Riisager's character. They're marked Firace and Violento, and Fantastico, and then Tumultuoso. So that's quite a symphony, isn't it? Here's a bit of the finale, just to whet your appetite. Sounds like fun, doesn't it? You also get a concert overture called Primavera, which is, of course, a form of pasta with vegetables. It also means spring, in case you're curious. And the Concerto for Orchestra, which was from 1931, one of the earliest types of concerto for orchestra ever written, along with like Hindemith, and Kodály wrote one. Now, this was in the days when concerti for orchestra were just being invented. And then there's this wonderful piece called Poème Mécanique, known as T-DOXC. It is one of the earliest works ever to depict the flight of an airplane, along with Martin's Thunderbolt P-47 and partly Antheil's Ballet Mécanique, which supposedly had like aircraft propellers in it. So, this is fully sophisticated, Parisian, modern, delicious, wonderful neoclassical music. It's fantastic. And let's see, Volume 3 of the symphonies contains the Summer Rhapsody on Danish folk melodies, which is unbelievably delicious. The Symphonia Concertante for strings, which is beautiful, and the Symphonia Gaia, which is number 4. It's actually a wartime piece. It's not entirely Gaia. And the last symphony, which is Symphonia Serena, which is not entirely Serena either. And that's for strings and timpani. And it's quite marvelous. I mean, Riisager was an amazing orchestrator, as you'll hear. And, even when he was using a string orchestra, he had such a keen sense of color and spacing of chords. And, it's marvelous. But his greatest music, arguably, were his ballets. He wrote a whole passel of them, and a whole bunch of them, suites and complete ballets, have been recorded. Now, this wonderful disc, contains his ballet Benzin, or Gasoline, which is about a love affair in a country gas station. Isn't that great? And I'm going to play you a little bit of the overture. Again, it gives you this wonderful sense he had for color, for humor, for rhythm. It's just spiky and adorable. Here is a little bit of the overture to Benzin. I mean, it makes you want more, doesn't it? And in addition to Benzin, there's a tone poem thing here called Archaeopteryx, which is a fossil, which should tell you something about how that's going to sound. And then his last work is To Apollo, God of Light, which is this really extraordinary tone poem that's almost quasi-minimalist, but is full of sort of these coruscating, dissonant harmonies. It's just wonderful. Absolutely wonderful stuff. So now we've done Benzin, and we've done, a bit of the Third Symphony. And the next disc here, these are all on dacapo. This is a wonderful, wonderful series. Quartzaluni, I have no idea how you're going to pronounce this, and Mandarin. Quartzaluni and Mandarin. Mandarin means moon reindeer. It's much easier in English, even though it's only one word in Danish. These are two ballets based on Inuit and native peoples' folk legends, and possibly even some of their folk music. They are absolutely fantastic, and you must hear them. You simply have to. There's no question. And then finally here we have, as far as orchestral things go, this disc of orchestral works, this was originally issued earlier in one of those hideous, ugly red covers when, dacapo was kind of primal and everything was sort of the same red cover. You didn't know it was on the disc, but they fortunately have repackaged it quite beautifully as part of the Riisager series. And this contains a whole bunch of suites and other things. There's a concertino for trumpet and orchestra with Håkan Hardenberger, which is terrific. Let's see, this goes right side up, goes that way. And then you get two ballet suites from Schlaraffenland, or the Kingdom of Fools. It's like Helm in Yiddish mythology. And you get, what else is this? 12 by Post, a ballet based on Hans Christian Andersen's story. And Darduze, an exotic ballet suite. This is just fantastic music. I want to play you a little bit of the Pas de Deux from the second Schlaraffenland suite, because it is unbelievably gorgeous. It's so beautiful that you think, and it's true, that it may actually be a bit of a romantic parody, but it's no less beautiful for that. It really isn't. Here's a bit of the Pas de Deux from Suite Number 2 from Schlaraffenland, and these performances are with I think it's Owain Arwell Hughes, isn't it? Yes, it is. I think it is. Let me see here. I can't even read this. No, this is Thomas Dalsgaard with the Helsinki Phil Symphony Orchestra. No, Helsingborg. Helsingborg Symphony Orchestra. Helsingborg can be pronounced just like Helsinki on any given day because it's Danish. Anyway, Pas de deux from Schlaraffenland. And it goes on for another 4 minutes or so. I mean, come on, right? Hey, doesn't it make you just want to sweat? Oh my God, it's gorgeous, isn't it? Now, there are other discs beside orchestral music. I do want to point out there is this Chandos disc featuring the Danish National Radio Symphony Orchestra under Rosh-Desvensky. This came out. I don't know if it's still around. It contains Quartzaluni. Remember that, the thing based on Inuit legend, and the let's see, Overture Erasmus Montanus, which is already in the dacapo series, and his ballet Etudes, which is based on orchestrations of Czerny piano etudes. And that also is available in this dacapo series, coupled to Riisager's violin concerto, which is quite marvelous. So you can get it this way. And I suggest that you do, because even if this is available, these performances are quite zippier. Quite a bit zippier than Rosh-Desvensky's, although they're not bad at all. They really aren't. And it's just nice to know another label attempted to do something for this man, because he really deserves the attention. My goodness, you can tell. But there's a fine disc, also on dacapo, of piano works performed by, let's see, Christina Bjorko. Let's just call her Bjorko. And it's quite marvelous. It's got his piano sonata and his sonatina and a bunch of pieces and arrangements from the ballets and other stuff. Nothing not to love. But finally, here's the old dacapo style cover, the red thing. This is a disc of chamber works, and this music is just fantastic. It really is. You get, let's see here, the variations for clarinet, viola, and bassoon. How's that for an arrangement? And the divertimento for string quartet and wind quintet together, ensemble, wonderful. And the sonata for flute, violin, clarinet, and cello, and his music for wind quintet. That's what it's called, music for wind quintet, and his serenade for flute, violin, and cello. You can tell that he enjoyed putting together string and individual woodwind sonorities. And of course, the preference for the sec, delicious sound of woodwinds is one of those things that characterizes that wonderful French style. Think of Poulenc's Sextoire or his solo sonatas for individual wind instruments. And you have that same sort of aesthetic throughout Riisager's work. I want to play you just the opening of the divertimento for wind quintet and string quartet, or string quartet and wind quintet, which is marked Allegro Sereno. And oh my God, is this delicious. Have a listen. It's just beautiful. Just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful music. And what's fascinating about this is that he was doing a lot of this in the 1920s. Nielsen was still around, and he was working in an entirely different aesthetic direction. Now, I know some of you out there have said that I should be doing Ruud Lanyard, whatever his name is, because he's kind of the go-to Danish non-Nielsen composer, because he was insane and he was a whack job. He wrote all kinds of symphonies in crazy styles, and I understand that. He was also a very interesting composer, and I'm going to be doing talks about him. There will be talks, and if this is the year 2375, it's already been done. But my pick for the most interesting Danish composer after Carl Nielsen is this guy. This guy, our good friend, Knudage Riisager. Call him Knudage Riisager. Do whatever you want. I don't care how you pronounce it. Like I said, it's the Copenhagen interpretation. It's got to be right at some point. If it's not right now, don't worry about it. Just keep on listening. He's great. He's absolutely great. So thank you, and take care.